Let me paint a picture for you. It's a warm, humid summer night. You hear cicadas in the air, and you're just back home from school. So it's time to wait until mom goes to bed and everyone is fast asleep. So you can turn off the lights and pop in some Killer7. A 2005 game by Goichi Suda of Grasshopper Manufacture. It's a game that's really near and dear to me. In the spirit of the day, I figured that it would be a good idea to prepare a little review for you. Let's get started. Video game author Goichi Suda, commonly spelled Suda51, as in Suda Go-ichi, is a very strange man, to say the least. Strange is actually an understatement. Him and his work are flat out weird. From his repertoire, I've always been in love with Killer7. His 2005 magnum opus got developed with Shinji Mikami of Resident Evil fame, a psychotic, psychedelic extravaganza of violence and horror following the exploits of a supernatural gang of criminals, the Smiths, who formed the titular Killer7 syndicate. But before we continue, a word of warning. I think this is probably the hardest essay I've ever had to write, given how utterly insane, disjointed, and abstract this game is. An R-rated rarity, it was famously rushed by Capcom. The plot is unfinished. Most of the actual plot is explained in a sidecar novel which I've never read, and the game just loves to mess around. I'm also terrible at politics, and this is an incredibly politically charged game. Probably the only one I've seen which actually dares tackle this theme. Weird graphics, weird music, weird characters, weird control schemes. Flat out, it's just a weird game. But weird shares the same etymology with both Destiny and word. Simple as to be able to articulate words. It's to craft your own destiny. So, what will we articulate about Killer7? Part 1. Kill the Past. Born in 1968, Suda comes from very humble beginnings. He used to work as a grave digger. Suda began his career with the highly dramatic Fire Pro Wrestling, developed with Human Entertainment, which tells the story of an up-and-coming wrestler who, spoiler alert, ends up suiciding at the cost of his career. Yes, this is a Super Famicom game we're talking about. Yes, I'm gonna be that guy, and I'm gonna mention that Suda seems to be a Mexico otaku. He loves lucha libre and many facets of Mexican culture. And of course, he's a shameless plug of a picture that I got with him. It should already be pretty clear that Suda is not someone who's content with following predetermined paths and formulae in game design. His games, which usually feature gratuitous violence and edgy, profane and morbid themes, characters and dialogue, presumably derived from close experiences with death he experienced earlier in his life, boldly twist, turn and reshape common gaming mechanics, tropes and aesthetics, often too interesting, if somewhat catastrophic results. Killer7 was when he began to go meteoric as part of a 5-game deal between Capcom and Nintendo, where the former will provide them with 5 exclusive games, famous last word trade there, in exchange for promotion and distribution privileges. The Capcom 5 were Killer7, Beautiful Joe, Resident Evil 4, Project Number 3, and the ill-fated Dead Phoenix. Then he had his punk rock era with the No More Heroes games on Wii, and then he had his sellout Electronic Arts era, None of his games are staples in the gaming mainstream. In fact, his games tend to sell very poorly and review badly. They come full of jank, horribly short draw distances, low frame rates, and weird control schemes. He's never produced anything which controls better than a 2006 Xbox 360 game even to this day. Yet, he must be considered by the gaming enthusiasts if they dare appreciate the medium in full. Just how unique his stuff is sometimes. You will not find a similar brand of insanity anywhere else. Cue the predictable comparison to the Tarantino of gaming, which he'll gladly accept, but I actually think is a disservice to Tarantino. Like him or not, he's present in the gaming collective unconscious and he's here to stay. I'm sorry, Susan. I love you. I love Grasshopper Manufacturer, but please stop producing games with junk. P.S. I hope the No More Heroes movie by Takashi Miike does happen, Susan. Beginning with 1996, Twilight Syndrome, a game unpublished in the Americas, were introduced to Suda's Kill the Past series, which is the moniker given to a series of action-adventure games loosely tied together, with recurring motifs and themes in a shared world. Perhaps predating the newfangled multiverse thing y'all dang kids love so much. Kill the Past comprises several games. These games share a common theme of events in the past coming back to haunt the game's protagonists who need to move on by destroying something from that past. All enveloping crassness, gore, and even some comedy. Add a couple fourth-wall breaks, associated graphics, and commentary about gaming and the gaming industry. What is it? Common elements in Kill the Past are the moon, death being apparently meaningless and reversible in the Sudaverse, systems of analog televisions or appliances that characters can interact with to somehow gain strange powers to them, 8-bit aesthetics, and assassins being either the main characters or prominent in the stories. Other recurring elements are the company Ishisaka, labeled ISCK, in appliances and elsewhere about the game world, and severed heads in paperbacks. Some characters reappear in different series and even meet each other. No More Heroes and Killer7 share Dan Smith, for example. No More Heroes and Travis Strikes Again share Kamui Uehara, etc. But anyway, so now let's focus on Killer7, a very important part of the Kill the Past series. Part 2. How soon is now? Killer7 follows the adventure of the Smith Syndicate, the strong arm of the USA against foreign menaces, a vicious, bloodthirsty group of 8 mercenaries, all sharing the Smith last name. What's unique about this is that the Smiths seem to be multiple personalities of a single man. Dan, the Hellion, Kaede the Barefoot, South American thief Coyote, Khan, who's a teenager, a completely mute and incorporeal assassin named Kevin, and Kid's favorite luchador, Mask the Smith, covertly employed by the government of the USA to do their bidding. The Smiths are directed by Harman Smith, an elderly, mysterious man with a murky past. Dear and near to Harman is his disciple and our protagonist, Garcian, who Harman took interest in from his elementary school days. Harman Smith was Garcian's principal at Coburn Elementary. Originally, the game will lead the player to believe that Harman Smith is who actually commands the rest of the personalities. But eventually, it is revealed that the actual protagonist is Garcian. Garcian seems to be able to change between personalities at whim, facts which are explored through Resident Evil style files within the game world. The plot begins after a terrorist attack on the United Nations in 2003, which is orchestrated by the Heaven Smile terrorist organization to lopside the balance of power. Prior to this, the world of Killer7 had achieved absolute world peace through the introduction of the Yakumo by the Union 7, a group of politicians of the UN Party, which is the Japanese Conservative Party, murdered in cold blood in a Philadelphia hotel in the 50s. By the way, that's UN as in imperialism, not as in the actual UN, even though the allusions are obvious. The Yakumo is a mysterious policy document. It appears to have supernatural powers on people's minds, subjecting them immediately to the will of the possessor. Yakumo is also the oldest recorded phrase known in Japanese, which translates to 8 clouds. The Heaven Smiles are a group of strange, zombie-like, kamikaze beings who communicate in grunts and hysterical laughter.
Fuck you!
The Smiths thus are dispatched to counteract them, apparently gaining their powers through some kind of virus. The Heaven Smiles can blow themselves up upon contact and possess many different superhuman abilities, such as teleportation, flying, producing blinding lights, or instant, massive breathing, and are invisible to normal people. The Smith Syndicate are the only ones who can see them after scanning them with the Killer Eye, an ability which only the Smiths possess and that was inherited to them from Dimitri Nightmare, who was absorbed by Hartman as a multiple personality. But more on that later, since, you know what, I played this in college and I had no idea that such a character even existed, because this is only explained in the complementary novel had in Killer7. Thus, the main point plots in the game revolve around tensions between Japan and the United States due to the Heaven Smiles and their search for the Yakumo. This back and forth is represented by the relationship between two demigodic characters in the game, Hartman Smith and Kun Lan, who actually had a relationship in real life around the time the Union 7 were alive. The game is composed of several different chapters, each having the Smiths take out one certain target. Heaven Smile leader Kun Lan, politicians Toru Fukushima and John DePaul, religious cult leader Andre Almeida, Curtis Blackburn, a pedophile underground trader of organs, and someone who Dan Smith still has an axe to grind with, mysterious comic book author Treble Pearl Harbor, Minister of Education Benjamin King, and finally Kenjiro Matsuoka, leader of the Japanese UN Party. 3 chapters are intermediary and serve mostly as backstory for the world of Killer7. In Cloudman, we learn how a meek Brazilian Texan mailman by the name of Andre Almeida found an excerpt of the Yakumo and used it to dominate a Texan town.
Let's hit Texas first.
Texas?
The t-shirt. Nobody wears a t-shirt that says Texas Bronco, except in Texas.
Huh?
In this chapter, I find very interesting how the Heaven Smiles are characterized as immigrants who moved into a small conservative Texan town, changing the demographics rapidly. These people follow Andre Almeida, who is regarded as a quasi-religious leader, through the foundation of his corporation, First Life Incorporated. A corporation that does wonders and brings the panacea for everything. In Alter Ego, we find a mysterious comic book author whose politically charged storylines eerily seem to predict real-world assassinations. In Alter Ego, we see what is perhaps a self-insert of the author. Both of these serve as allegories of how the government uses media brainwashing as a mechanism of power. In Encounter, we learn about the shady underground dealings of a Seattle-based child abuse and organ trafficking ring commanded by Curtis Blackburn. Curtis Blackburn subtracts children from Ishizaka Land, a Disneyland kind of deal, and farms their organs and sells them around. He is in cahoots with Pedro Montana, a government official, and Dan Smith. Things go wrong, and Dan Smith is used as a scapegoat, which is why Dan Smith has beef against Curtis Blackburn in his post-mortem incarnation in Garshan. Pedro Montana, so his family is raped and killed by Curtis Blackburn. So things went incredibly sour between all those three. The Heaven Smiles are your main opponent throughout the game. All smiles have a weak point, visualized by a cluster of golden particles in their bodies after scanning them with a killer eye. Critical shot to this weak point will immediately kill the creature, yielding its blood, which you can then collect in tech and din varieties. Blood collection is one of the very few mechanics in Killer7. You cannot even move freely, in what I think is an allegory about the power of the subconscious. The game has been commonly called an on-rails game, but I don't agree with that denominator. It's not on rails like a gallery shooter. Instead, movement is controlled not by a joystick, but rather by pressing A or B. A advances down a certain pre-established path, which can branch at some points, and B makes your character turn around 180 degrees to run the opposite way. The directional stick chooses a branch once you hit a juncture in the road. At any moment, you can brandish your current Smith's infinite ammo weapons using the R button, in a way that's reminiscent of Resident Evil. Dan sports a revolver, Kaede uses a sniper visor, Coyote uses a pistol, Con dual wields, Kevin uses throwing knives, and Mass the Smith uses a grenade launcher. The A button will shoot while you aim. The L trigger will scan with the killer eye. The secondary controller stick is for reloading. Yes, I know. Controller schemes were weird in early 2000s Japanese games. But anyway, if you hear a Heaven Smile, try scanning around for them. If you see their weak point, try to hit it. Otherwise, it's sure to kill. If they come too close, you can use a special takedown, the down attack, triggered with the B button if you're at a certain level. The B button can also be used to lock onto enemies if they're far away within a certain range. It is important to combat well, because blood is your primary supply. Thin blood will fill vials, which can be consumed for health restoration or to trigger each of the Smith's several special powers. Dan can shoot a big fireball, the collateral shot. Kaede can split her wrist to invoke a spirit, the old BDSM partner of trusty sidekick Iwasaru, which will reveal new paths. Coyote can jump massively high and break locks. Con goes super speed. Kevin turns invisible and becomes undetectable by security devices, and Mask can blow walls away with grenades. His power is kinda meh because Kaede pretty much has the same ability, but who am I to judge? Dick Blood will be collected to upgrade your Smith's abilities, traded at save points for increased attack power, health, or to unlock new down attacks. I'm sad to say though, the metagame is pretty shallow, but I don't think the game was ever going for mechanical depth anyway, so that's alright. Ever since I can remember, there's always been this discussion in the Suda community about style versus substance. Some people argue, and with due reason, that Suda's games don't have enough substance. That is he actually making good games? Does he actually need more substance? A part of me wants to say that actually style is substance. But I do understand that other aspect as well. I like it when games are gamey, when they have a lot of the right kind of complexity. Killer7 uses a checkpoint system in these save points. Spread around the game world, random rooms will lead you back into Harman's room. A mystical, otherworldly room reminiscent of a room in Garshen's trailer, where you can save and upgrade your Smiths. Inhabited only by Iwasaru and Samantha, the maid of the Smith Syndicate, there is a direct parallel between this room and the room of the actual, real-life Harman, who lives wheelchair-bound in a trailer in the outskirts of Seattle, under the care of a rowdy teenager called Samantha. Every time you visit Harman's room in-game, this will be your checkpoint, where Garshen will respawn from if your current Smith dies. If one of your Smiths dies, Garshen has to collect their dismembered head from a creepy paper bag laying around a police crime scene chalk drawing. Armed with a humongous, human-sized attach case, Garshen is the only one out of the 8 Smiths capable of collecting and reviving the corpses of the other Smiths. In his own words, he's a cleaner.
Don't make me say it again. I'm a cleaner.
However, if Garshen is killed in action during the tribal, it's game over. Not every Harman's room is the same. Some of them, denoted by a green lantern outside, will actually be copies of the real version, and would not allow you to save, while those versions of the room, denoted by a red lamp, will allow you to save. Why? Your guess is as good as mine, but I thought that by this point we had already forgone any possible semblance of this game making any sense. I think it's some kind of metaphor about Garshen's dissociated mind and its grasp on reality. The main gameplay loop in Killer7 consists of classic Resident Evil style exploration, gunplay, and light puzzle solving. In every map, you will run into some recurring characters which will guide you on your path, providing hints or additional items for your quest. Of importance, there's Psycho Susie, Ayame Blackburn, which was a protege of Curtis Blackburn, a mysterious beheaded yandere who will provide you with a variety of rings. A certain ring will have a certain effect on the environment on a given place. If you're next to a smoke sensor and you activate the fire ring, for example, the sprinklers will rain. If you have the time ring and a destroyed mirror is nearby, you may be able to return it to working condition. It's all very simple though, and again, mostly played for style rather than anything, reminiscing of classic Resident Evil and Silent Hill puzzle fare. There's also good old Travis, which some fans believe to be the spirit of the Travis Touchdown, or related somehow. A friendly spirit who chills around and provides additional backstory and hints as to how to proceed. Since it was actually 100% confirmed that No More Heroes and Killer7 happen in the same timeline and game world, I wouldn't discard that he is indeed Travis Touchdown, but this has never been confirmed. Travis was the very first victim of the Killer7 syndicate, since there is a clip now, recently released by the way, that Dan Smith sent Batgirl's father on a mission to kill Travis Touchdown. Maybe that theory could be true. Something pretty cool that I literally just found out about is that in the Japanese version of the game, the characters generally speak in English, in badly translated English, passed through a voice synthesizer. And the subtitles, whenever the word death comes up, it gets highlighted in red. The dub was slightly changed for the English release. They probably thought that it would clash too much, but that difference is interesting to see. Upon performing certain tasks in the game world, you will obtain a variety of bizarre artifacts. Of importance, the spirit shells. Bullets of a weird nature which can be traded at the Vinculum Gate, a weird extra-dimensional dimension where a mysterious gatekeeper will take your shells for entrance. Every level has a different requirement of shells. Once satisfied, you will be allowed into a liminal space, a single simplistic straight corridor where Ray-Ban, pretty much the best music track in the game, will play for a few seconds. I think there's some kind of irony to constraining your very best piece of music to a single unimportant corridor, but alas. After this, you will end up at the Battleship Island, invariably of your location, an artificial island where the boss fights transpire. Through your adventure, exposition in each chapter will be related in wildly varying styles. Some chapters rely on in-game sequences, and others even show you story bits in anime and American comic book style. Part 3. Reenact. I am terrible at politics, so I am so sorry that I'm gonna get this wrong. But the main theme in the game, plain and simple, is the constant opposition between both political axes in the modern world, America and Japan, the West and Asia, Occident and Orient. One cannot survive without the other, yet one is continuously at odds with the other, vying for dominance, challenging it, messing with the other, and sometimes even being dangerously comfortable in bed together. Ultimately, the powers must delicately negotiate with each other for their mutual, continued existence. This is perfectly laid down with the introduction of Kun Lan and Harmon Smith in the third chapter, where a never-ending conflict, a wheel which will only keep turning, is presented on top of the Seattle Space Needle.
Harmon, the world won't change. All it does is turn. Now, let's dance.
Notice how 7 and 8 correspond to each other in this game. Let's say that there's two currents of mysticism in the world. There are overgeneralizations. Commonly, you can identify Mesopotamian and East Asian mysticism, let's call them. In Mesopotamian mysticism, 7 is a holy or a magic number. That's why Lucky 7, that's why you had originally 7 planets, and etc. And in East Asian cultures, 8 is regarded in the same way. 8 sides of the I Ching, 8 Buddhas, and etc. So it's pretty cool to see how that was working to the plot of the game. The Killer 7 actually have 8 members, for example, right? Part 4. Vote falsification.
Please leave your message after the tone.
Hello, Mr. Smith. The election is drawing near. Have you decided on your vote? If you haven't, please let the Republic Party make the most of your precious vote. Thank you and have a nice day.
You will listen to this Robocolor spiel at the beginning of most episodes in Killer 7. The Republic Party, not to be confused but perhaps alluding to the Republican Party, is the most influential political party in the United States in the world of Killer 7. And it's implied that they're calling the shots. Its main opponents in the USA are the Democratic Party, not to be confused but perhaps alluding to the Democrat Party. Their equivalents in Japan are the UN Party and the Liberal Party. The Killer 7, driven by the unconscious, are actually moving the agenda of the government of the USA forward by the strategic elimination of their targets on both sides of the spectrum.
It's a really old story. Union 7, a group made up of 7 young men, drew up the Yakumo Party cabinet policy. The heat of factional politics eventually broke down the Union 7.
This is just a war. It's Japan trying to infiltrate the United States and the USA acting back. And the central point of this is the Yakumo. Whichever power has access to that policy is the ruling power in the world. It is revealed little by little that the government of the USA is simply a facade of a deep state. All of the political drama is just for show. Where do elections take place? In schools. And who handles the organization and execution of an election? The Ministry of Education, which is shown to be infiltrated by the Japanese. The Ministry of Education is who actually holds the power in the world of Killer 7, since they get the leverage to manipulate elections a whim. One of the final and most climactic fights in the game occurs in a school next to the election ballots. The Japanese infiltrated Ministry of Education have a covert program to create assassins. Japanese handlers train and mentalize certain gifted children in the US, MK Ultra style, into becoming cold-blooded killers. Their methods open the third eye of the kids and create multiples in their minds, which are inhabited by the souls of the people they assassinate. Garshan then realizes his part in this. Late in the game, Garshan Smith goes rogue due to the assassination of his trusty informant and friend, Mills, and he finds the file of a child by the name of Emir Parkreiner in an old school. He gets access to this by playing Russian roulette with Benjamin Keane.
Would you like to join me for a game of Russian roulette? Come on. How about it, son? you win, I'll let you in on a little secret. How to hit on women with 100% success.
And if I lose?
If you lose, then I want you to kill the president.
Emir is the last child of a certain family of notoriety, who then murders every person in his school, including the principal, after a psychotic episode. The principal was an incarnation of Harman Smith. Realizing that he had a third eye, Harman takes interest in Garcian and takes him under his wing, and then he was absorbed as one of the multiples. Emir was then recruited, and his past was covered up by the government of the USA, who hired him to ambush the Killer7 syndicate at the Union Hotel. From this episode, he gained their personalities as multiples, and later suicided on the roof once he realized what he had done.
You, Emir, are an assassin controlled by the government. Someone is watching your every move.
Garcian then realizes that Emir is himself. This realization is represented by the reopening of his third eye in a certain scene. Even though he's an American, Garcian somehow exhibits Japanese demeanor and habits, like traditional bowing, a remnant from his Japanese handlers. He has flashbacks of killing the early Harman Smith, Kunlan, and the Killer7, actions he originally took as Emir Park Reiner. Lastly, once he reaches the roof, he finds an effigy of the early Emir Park Reiner, a younger version of himself with an open third eye. The game concludes once you kill him, perfectly tying into the Kill the Past theme. Garcian then snaps out of it in the middle of a nervous breakdown. He opens his suitcase for the first time to reveal that all the weapons of the Killer7 were always inside all along. Part 5. Shoot the Future. The game concludes with a visit to Battleship Island, a man-made island set between Japan and the USA in the Pacific, which is accessible through an intercontinental highway, a theoretical development in the world of Killer7, and which is kind of a metaphor for Hawaii and Japan. Missing his killer eye now, and using the same golden gun that he used to kill the Killer7, the now reawakened Emir visits the island to put an end to the Heaven Smiles. The last one of them, which may or may not be Iwasaru, and who is revealed to actually be Conlan, lies in a room guarded by Kenjiro Matsuoka. Your access to this room depends upon your answer to a question in the ultimate conclusion to the game. Do you kill Kenjiro Matsuoka to extinguish the Japanese Empire, or do you let him live to fight another day?
What I really love about this game is that the implications are pretty obvious at this point. I'm not gonna reveal what choice did I make. I'm actually more interested in hearing about what choice will you make in this situation. There's also the fact that I've been recently listening to the audiobook for Destined for War, which is a book that proposes given China's recent eclipsing of the United States, both in economy and artillery and many other regards, could threaten the balance of things and lead us eventually into military conflict. It proposes that this is something that we could very much see in our lives, and it shows several examples of situations where that's happened between an established world power and an upcoming rival. In my opinion, America is a culture that, even though it knows that it's facing many challenges, it is very certain that it will retain its position of power in the world. Besides, currently, we kind of live in the era of soft power. You don't really need displays of artillery to assert yourself as the world power anymore. Power is obtained through more insidious economical and cultural means. However, given the current military tensions in the world, and there's a threat of mainland China invading Taiwan sometime soon, that could very much mean that we could see a clash between both powers in the coming years. So the game concludes with one of two possible endings, after which you will get a new game plus, Killer 8. Pretty interesting to see that Killer 7 is replaced with Killer 8. Killer 8 is the same game, albeit more difficult. If a heaven smile touches you at any moment, it's an instant KO. And also, you will have access to a new personality, Young Harman Smith. Well, so that's Killer 7, everyone. A game that will definitely never be made in the current day and age. I urge everyone watching this, give it a play. It's been recently remade for PC in glorious HD, and it's just so unique. You owe it to yourself to check it out on your own. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this video. And with that, this is all for the year. I'm off to Japan. Have a good day, and happy Halloween.